As the fourth industrial revolution unfolds, it brings with it disruptive changes to business models and to the nature of work and the employment landscape. While some fear that millions of jobs may be lost because of technology disruption in the next decade or so, others see opportunities for the creation of millions of new jobs.
An augmented labor force will emerge that blends the capability of both humans and machines, leveraging each other's strength to improve productivity. Will the benefit outweigh the cost of disruption? That is up to us and the decision we make today.
Educators, educational institutions, policymakers and investors are coming face to face with questions like, are we preparing our students for the needs of the current and future world of work? What learning do they need? Are linear career trajectories along conventional paths still the answer to the educational dilemmas of today?
So worldwide, if you look at access rates in higher education, they're around the 30% mark if you look at an average. But obviously it's a broad range. Countries in like North America and Europe, they're 70–80%. Asia is about 40–50% in some parts. Africa is fairly low. In some cases, it's less than 10%. So obviously that means the need is urgent. It's yesterday, and we need to address this. And obviously public solutions, public universities, access to public higher education is simply not sufficient. We have to have private models that deliver the same quality and relevance of education.
The International Finance Corporation decided to bring its 8th Global Private Education Conference to Africa for the first time.
So one of the reasons we wanted also to organize this conference in Africa, one is to provide education operators from the continent to expose them to what others are doing in other places in terms of how to scale access to education, in terms of affordability of education and in terms of quality, but also expose operator and investor from outside the continent to the opportunities that exist in Africa for the future.
More than 350 participants representing 200 companies based in 48 countries attended the two-day event. Almost 80% of the attendees were from emerging markets in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe and the Middle East. They came to share insights into the latest trends and to build bridges between private education institutions and investors. Setting the scene for the conference was keynote speaker Gary Bowles, an author and internationally recognized expert on the future of work and learning.
Our belief is that educators have a unique opportunity. This is a time of exponential change where really dramatic changes are happening. Science fiction level technologies are appearing overnight. Industries are being dramatically disrupted. And so especially as we think about in education in the context of the kinds of work that people are doing today and tomorrow, I really believe there's a tremendous opportunity to be able to help people young and old to do what we think of as becoming problem solvers who are adaptive, creative, and who have empathy for the kinds of problems that they need to solve. And that if we focus on what we really think of as those kinds of transferable skills, skills that can be used in a wide range of areas, that we're going to be able to help people to continually adapt as the new exponential technologies come online and as the world continues to change.
But do you think people are ready to adapt?
I think a couple things are true. The first is that the past is normally not exactly what we remember it to be. We've always been subjected to dramatic change, especially on the global stage. But I also think that the opportunity is for people to see that there are tremendous new ways that they can solve new problems. There are completely different kinds of challenges that they're going to be able to solve that weren't able to solve before. If we just understand the ways that those technologies that are appearing can be best used to the advantage of people in society.
How is Volkswagen South Africa adjusting to upskilling now that artificial intelligence and robots are taking a more prominent place in the world of work?
We were quite lucky because we just launched the new Polos and Vivos. Over the last 3 years we've been preparing for this, and in that space, when all the new technologies that came on board, we have already incorporated them in our factory in Uitenhage. We have already got a cell with human-robot cooperation where you actually, the employee works hand in hand with a robot. Robot hands over the heavy parts to the employee and gets it back. We collect data on big scale. So we don't have to now do it on top of the normal day-to-day work. We have already done it with a massive preparation phase for the new cars.
What are the cost factors in changing?
Well, it's obviously on the data collection and processing side, the sensoric. The rest of it, robots are not the major factor anymore. But you see, what we are experimenting with is the driverless transport systems, where the part actually knows where it's supposed to go, and it gets automatically transported from the storage space to the point at the line where it gets fitted. So there's amazing opportunity to avoid mistakes. In a vehicle, you have parts like the instrument cluster, for example. It could have 50 different variants, and depending on which country that car goes to or what kind of colors in, whatever, you have all the different variants, and the employee needs to work out which one goes in which car. Now, if the system is all integrated, you don't need to make that mistake.
Is education technology in Africa keeping pace with that in the rest of the world? And what are the benefits students can expect?
We're investors in both Andela and in Bridge Academies here within Africa. And so as somebody who's been studying Africa venture capital, I work for the IFC venture capital team for the past 6 years. I can truly say that the venture ecosystem within Africa in general is growing quite significantly. And we have consistently seen a lot of innovation within the ed tech sector. Still nascent and young, and we invest kind of in the Series B stage. That's more of what my team does. But the numbers of those ed tech companies within Africa that are starting to grow up continues to increase, so we're very excited that we'll find more opportunities like those. And so for me, I'm excited to see the developments within the African community. The students in particularly benefit because for the first time, the level of competency that they have can be intuitively understood by these applications to allow them to learn at their speed. So the concept of personalization, which has always been I'll call it more of a dream factor, because of technology, lowers the access costs for that and the ability to have personalization. So that's the main benefit for the student.
In July last year, Google Africa committed to training 10 million people in Africa in online skills over the next 5 years. This includes the training of 100,000 software developers in Nigeria, Kenya and South Africa. The primary focus being employability, matching skills to the needs of the market.
Right now we've trained more than 2 million people. With the 2 million people trained, 10% of them have gone ahead and gotten employment within 3 months of training. 13% of the businesses reported that they've hired people within 3 months of that training. And another 10% have reported that they've started their own businesses. So that's the kind of impact we want to continue to see, and we continue to expand the program to reach more communities to make sure that young people are learning how to use the web to grow their businesses, to start a business, or get the certifications they need to go into industry and find a job. We have trained people in 29 countries across Africa. Our focus countries are Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. So those are the countries that drive most of the numbers. In addition to Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, the countries where we've seen kind of a lot of interest have been Ghana. So we've trained several hundred thousand people in Ghana. We've trained several people in Uganda as well, in Rwanda. So it cuts across the board. The training is available online and it's also available in person to people in several countries. There's huge interest. There's also a lot of interest on the side of the governments as well because they see this as an opportunity to engage young people and get them to start learning on their own, which I think will have to continue to happen for people to get the kind of opportunities they need.
Nova Pioneer is a group of pre-primary through to secondary schools in Southern and East Africa with plans to expand into West Africa.
Is technology important to you in your education model?
Absolutely. Technology is important to a couple of different ways. One, it's important to students' learning and to equipping students with the agency and the ability to use technology to create. These are skills that they'll need, and they already need, and will need even more in the world to come. That's one. Two, it's also as an organization really important for our own effectiveness and efficiency, whether that's in curriculum development and curriculum innovation, whether that's in operations and enrollment, whether that's in finance and procurement. Technology really enables us to establish and improve quality over time while we scale. There's certainly a very successful financeable, investable business opportunities. We think of ourselves as we are for-profit, but we're for-profit for purpose. Our for-profit nature is intended to be able to raise the capital and return the capital to be able to meet our purpose. And as a result, education, if you do a good job of education, it's financially successful and should do well for investors and financiers. And certainly that's been our experience so far.
What stood out for me as well that you said is that you need to provide children with an environment that is conducive to problem solving.
So one of the challenges I think that we have is that in many cases, in many of our economies, we have school systems that were built to deliver education on a mass basis. And it's perfectly understandable. We sort of used an industrial model because that's initially how we thought we could solve the problem. But now that we have a range of technologies that can be used inside and outside the classroom, it's actually possible to give students much more opportunity to be able to experiment, to be able to collaborate with each other, to be able to solve different kinds of problems. And what you realize is that students, young people, can bring a tremendously new perspective. I mean, they're innovation machines to be able to solve problems in ways that adults would never have conceived of.
Students are born learners, which is wonderful. I mean, the great joy and privilege of being in education is to get to work with young people who are predisposed to curiosity and learning. What we've got to do is create an environment in which they're able to actively pursue those ideas and to see those ideas result in personal growth. And so we have a couple ways. One is through a set of mindsets, what we call culture principles, that really anchor on things like joy of learning, high expectations, always growing, that really reinforce a lifelong joy of learning. That's one. Two is how we learn, highly collaborative, highly student-centered. Great learning happens when great teachers talk less, and that happens at Nova Pioneer. And the third is connection through the relationship, whether it's in school or connecting what they're doing in classroom to the real world beyond. Doing those three ways, it really inspires a culture of continuous learning and joy of learning. Our mission is developing a generation of innovators and leaders who can shape the world and not just work in it. And as a result, our pedagogy is very focused on developing young people with the skills to turn ideas into impact.
After the break, we find out about some new education models, the employability tool launched at the conference, as well as the new IFC award that saw winners from Africa and the Middle East. The conference featured a number of exciting and innovative approaches to education. Among the many global speakers was Leo Schlesinger, CEO at Aliat Universidades, one of the largest education groups in Mexico. Its 16 universities currently boast 52,000 students at 34 campuses in 17 states.
There is a great disconnect between what academia thinks it's doing and what the students and the market believe they're doing. So 2/3 of the students and employers think that academia is not preparing them for entry-level jobs. But if you ask the academia, they think they're doing a great job. That puts academia in a place where today is part of the problem more than part of the solution. So unless we change our mindset and really adapt our curricula and work for the dreams of the student, we will be doing them a disservice. So relevance is key. And relevance, it's one, like we define it, so to allow you to be employed or to start a business, and that is linked to what the market requires. So we know that content today has a shelf life that is very short. So we believe content by itself is a commodity. We need to be able to adapt our curricula to what's relevant today and what it will get you to be employed or where it will get you the skills that are going to be required for the future. We should provide you with the tools to follow your dream. And you will have a toolkit that comes from engineering, a toolkit that will come from the legal studies or whatever, that will help you get to where you want to go. But it's not in the narrow definition that you will only go through a path of engineering to be an engineer. Is to have the toolkits of engineering for you to do whatever it is that you want to do in your life.
The brainchild of Mike Feerick and based in Ireland, Alison is an entirely free online platform that makes its revenue through advertising. In 2005, Mike looked at the development of online advertising and took the leap.
It changed the economics of education in the sense that you could put up a piece of educational content online and actually make money by putting it up. And that immediately said to me, well, that's an interesting business. But then the other thing is what an amazing social impact you could have if you could make education free globally. But also the realization that charity and philanthropy can never deal with big social issues. And if you look at education that's in and philanthropy and charity that's in education, it is only a drop of the button in the bucket. What we need to do is change the global system of education in a way that people can make money out of providing free education. So we have about 1,000 free courses, anything from English language to project management to whatever. And so we put the content online. We surround it with advertising. So if you're doing health and safety, there's somebody probably, mostly the advertising on Alison is education related. So if you're doing a free course in health and safety, there's probably a paid university trying to convince you to do a degree in health and safety with them. So it's fairly benign advertising that's on it. You can get rid of it if you wish for a small payment, but if you want it free and you can put up with the advertising, off you go. And the other way is certification. So you know, certification, people can understand that learning is free worldwide through advertising, but certification is a big expense within education all around the world. So the trick is, how can you make that free? Well, the thing is, we need to get our mindset away from the old points of degrees. We must provide a much more flexible, much freer system online, and people are really engaging with this. Alison has over 200,000 learners in South Africa. We have over 300,000 in Nigeria and 400,000 in Egypt. And about over 2 million people signed up to Alison right across the continent.
The founder and CEO of SIS, or Singapore Intercultural Schools, has found a way to make private school education a lot more affordable for ordinary people while maintaining high standards of education.
I worked in Indonesia for 29 years. And my children, we had the privilege to send children to one of the most expensive schools. It's $30,000 US per year. Now, Jill, education cannot be that expensive. So I decided that there's got to be a different model. So I halved 30 to 15, and I'm a Singaporean. So I've taken the Singapore curriculum and the Singapore education system, which is ranked as #1 in the world. I'm not saying it, OECD, PISA rankings has put Singapore #1. So I brought that down to Indonesia at $15,000. And I'm looking at that school of mine and I'm thinking, it can't be that expensive, right? It has got to be cheaper. So I halved 15 to 7. I got that's 7,000 US a year, and I had IFC, the World Bank, helping me out there. And then I halved 7 to 3,500. And 2 years ago, I halved 3,500 to only 1,500.
That's for private education?
That's for private education. And why is it successful? One, the schools are an ecosystem. No schools out there should operate in isolation. And that's an issue with a lot of the public schools. They are all operating in isolation. My budget school, it's only a 10% tuition fee compared to the most expensive school. Schools are an ecosystem. They collaborate, not financially, but collaboration of ideas. So for example, every 2 months, all the kids fly down and they share. All the administrators fly down and they share. So the head of a budget school shares the meeting, gets a chance to chair the meeting just as the one who's running the most expensive school. So a teacher from the budget school, she can get onto the net and ask for anything that she wants from anyone in the ecosystem. I call it vertical collaboration, and you know what? The budget schools are giving the most expensive school a run for the money. They are, because all the schools do common exams, and I benchmark them all. So that's one. Number two, teachers. I spend a lot of time and resources on teachers. We find the best, we keep them, and we motivate them. The Singapore system, Jill, works on a very clear curriculum, very responsive curriculum for the 21st century, and the teachers have very clear lesson plans. We collect data, they're held accountable, and there's feedback loops. That's the success.
The IFC has financed over $1.8 billion in loans and equity to over 120 projects to support private education in emerging markets. Tertiary education, including technical and vocational training, represent about 75% of IFC's business in education. Launched at the conference was the employability tool.
Very often young people, and millions of them around the world and also in Africa, are struggling, are floundering because they have credentials, they have diplomas, degrees, they don't have access to information about job opportunities. On the other side, thousands of jobs with employers struggling to find talent, but don't have an ecosystem with which to engage. This tool will help our higher education clients and beyond to be able to assess themselves, evaluate themselves on how good they are at providing employability services, and then work with us and our experts to create a roadmap to see how they can improve. What that will do for the young people, because it's all directed towards the students in the end, is to help them gain access to information, access to better services, and equip themselves better and to be more prepared for the rigors of the job market. So we believe this is going to be a very important contribution on the part of IFC to bring to our clients some value add beyond growth capital, because that's what we traditionally do. We provide growth capital for our clients to grow. But this, I think, is a real value add in terms of helping to impact the lives of young people.
Also new for the IFC at the Global Private Education Conference was the granting of 2 awards for exceptional education providers.
We are honoring 2 CEOs from our client network for some of the unique and impactful work they are doing in Africa, one in Africa and one in the Middle East region. So one of our awardees is Andela out of Nigeria, which is a company that train young African to become software developer and place them with the global technology company. So while they are still studying, they are part of teams working with in places like Amazon and Uber and Apple. So that's quite an innovative model that Andela has been able to put together. The other client that was awarded is a leading technical vocational institute out of Jordan called Luminous. And the reason for the award, Luminous was able to change the mindset in Jordan towards technical vocational. Today, 50% of people of the students who are enrolled in Luminous are equally eligible to go to university, but they opted to go for a technical vocational college because of the quality and the reputation and the return of investment that Luminous graduates have had.
We are social enterprise, we are for good for profit. It takes very long to where we are today. It takes us more than 15 years to be sustainable and now to become profitable. It's gonna be very profitable when it go at scale, when we have thousands of youth to go into the job markets. And also how we think to scale up this model by offering very unique financial models that allow anyone can enter our college. So for example, we are working in a project for income sharing. For we educate youth, and then they go get jobs, we take percentage from their salary. So that means if you are talented and you have zero money, you can come to us and get the education and get jobs, and we'll take care from your salary in the future, because we are sure that he'll get salary, and we're taking the risk with the youth. On the other hand, we are offering a student lending program, okay, while if you can come and study with us, and you can pay later after you get jobs. For all these things is going to make the model is very scalable. And we are targeting to grow in the whole Arab world.
How big are you at the moment? How many students do you have?
At the moment, we have 5,000 students. And when I started this in 2000, we have, when my family have the acquisition of the college, we have 150 students.
As the curtain comes down on the 8th Global Private Education Conference in Cape Town, the need for innovation, collaboration and employability of students will remain hot topics.
I think we're at an amazing inflection point where what we think of as formal education is becoming unbundled, and there are going to be a range of new and very innovative ways of providing learning experiences for people, lifelong learning experiences for people in completely new ways.